Welcome back to English Learn Day, the place where stories help you grow, succeed, and master your English naturally. Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful true stories of perseverance and self-belief, the journey of Chris Gardner, a man who had nothing, not even a home, but never gave up on becoming someone more. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like the world forgot about you? Like no matter how hard you try, life just keeps pushing you down? If you've ever wanted to give up, or doubted that your future could be different, stay with me. Because this story will remind you that you are not stuck. You are becoming. Chris Gardner wasn't born rich. He didn't grow up in a safe home. His childhood was filled with fear, instability, and poverty. As a young adult, he worked hard just to survive. He tried to build a future, but life kept closing doors. At one point, he had no job, no savings, and no place to live. He was homeless, with a toddler son in his arms. They slept in public bathrooms, sometimes in subway stations, sometimes in shelters. There were nights when Chris pretended to be strong, so his son wouldn't feel afraid. But inside, he was breaking. Still, every morning, he woke up and went to work, unpaid, as an intern in a competitive financial company. He wore the same clothes every day. He smiled through the pain. Because he knew, if he gave up now, everything would be lost. He didn't have money. But he had something more powerful, belief. He believed that his situation didn't define him. That success wasn't just for other people. That even a man with nothing could build something great. Most people didn't know what Chris was going through. They saw a man in a shirt and tie, walking fast, carrying a briefcase. They didn't see the pain behind his eyes. They didn't know he had just slept in a public restroom. That he hadn't eaten a real meal in 2 days. That he had to wash in gas station sinks while holding his son's tiny hand. But Chris never showed weakness. Not because he wasn't tired, but because he had no choice. He was a father first. Every day, he looked at his son and said, "I got you. We're going to make it." Even when he didn't know how. The internship was unpaid. He had to compete with others who had money, homes, security. They went home to warm beds. He went back to cold floors. But he kept studying. Kept calling clients. Kept pushing himself to learn, improve, connect. He couldn't afford to waste time. Every minute mattered. Every second was survival. At night, when his son asked, "Are we gonna be okay?" Chris always smiled. "Yes, son. We are." That smile wasn't fake. It was his way of holding hope in place. He was teaching his child something bigger than comfort. He was teaching resilience. Quiet strength. The kind that doesn't shout, but never stops moving. There were moments when he broke down. When he cried in silence so no one could hear. But he always got back up. He always returned to the goal, not just to survive, but to become a man his son could look up to. Chris didn't want pity. He wanted possibility. He wasn't just chasing money. He was chasing dignity. And that made every sacrifice worth it. After months of sleeping on floors, skipping meals, and pretending he was fine, Chris was exhausted, but he never stopped. Every morning, he arrived earlier than anyone. He stayed later. He made more calls, took more notes, learned faster. Not because he was smarter, but because he was hungrier. Not for food, for opportunity. He had no backup plan. This internship was his only shot. He knew that only one person from the program would be offered a full-time job. Just one. And the others? They would walk away empty-handed. Chris didn't say this out loud, but inside, he made a promise: that spot will be mine. And then, one afternoon, it happened. He was called into a meeting with the managers. He thought maybe they wanted to say thank you or goodbye. He didn't expect much. He couldn't afford to hope too much anymore. But then, one of them smiled and said, "We'd like to offer you the position." Chris froze. For a moment, he didn't hear anything else. Just silence. Then his eyes filled with tears. He tried to smile, tried to stay professional. But his heart was breaking, in the best way. All those nights on the street. All those sacrifices. All the pain. It was worth something. He made it. He did it. He walked out of that building holding the paper in his hands. And for the first time in a long time, he felt the sun on his face, not as a stranger, but as someone who belonged. He didn't cry in the room. But outside, on the street, he broke down. Quietly. Gratefully. Not because he was weak, but because he had finally allowed himself to feel how far he'd come. That moment didn't make him rich. It made him free. Chris Gardner didn't celebrate by buying a car or going out to dinner. He didn't have money for that. His celebration was walking home with his son, holding his hand, and knowing that tomorrow, finally, they would sleep in a real bed. That night, he didn't dream of millions. He dreamed of stability, of dignity, of peace. As time passed, Chris built his career. He worked hard, earned respect, and later started his own company. He became a millionaire, but that was never the goal. For Chris, success was never about money. It was about becoming a man who could look in the mirror and say, "I never gave up." It was about giving his son a better future, and proving that your past does not define your value. He often said, "The world is your oyster. It's up to you to find the pearls." That message wasn't just for business. It was for life. For anyone struggling. For anyone starting over. For anyone who feels invisible. He proved that the path from homeless to CEO is real, not just in movies, but in life. And if you're learning English, you might be in your own version of that struggle. Maybe you feel behind. Maybe you've made mistakes. Maybe people doubt your potential. But Chris's story reminds us, your beginning doesn't decide your ending. The small actions you take every day matter. The effort you put in, even when no one sees, builds your future. Learning English isn't just about speaking well. It's about opening doors, building confidence, believing that your voice matters. And just like Chris worked every day with quiet discipline, you can do the same. Word by word, lesson by lesson. Success isn't about being the best. It's about becoming better every single day. And if you stay consistent, like Chris did, you'll find that your effort becomes your strength. Your journey becomes your story. And your story becomes someone else's inspiration. Chris Gardner's story isn't just about business. It's about belief. And belief is exactly what every English learner needs, not in a perfect accent, not in a perfect vocabulary, but in themselves. Learning English is not always fast. Sometimes it feels slow, frustrating, lonely. You forget words. You make mistakes. You feel embarrassed. But guess what? So did Chris. Not with English, but with life. He failed. He fell. He cried. But he stood up again. And again. That's what learning really looks like. When you start to feel like it's not worth it, remember Chris studying after long days, sleeping on bathroom floors, showing up every morning like nothing was wrong. That is the kind of strength you already have. Because showing up to practice English when you're tired, when you're nervous, when you're doubting yourself, that is powerful. Chris didn't wait to feel ready. He didn't wait for the perfect conditions. He started exactly where he was, with nothing. And he turned that nothing into something. You can do the same. Start with one sentence. One conversation. One small, quiet decision to keep going. Don't let fear stop you from speaking. Don't let shame stop you from learning. And don't let the past tell you who you are. You are not your last mistake. You are not your old limitations. You are what you practice. And if you keep practicing, you will grow stronger, not just in English, but in life. So the next time you feel stuck, ask yourself, what would Chris do? He would show up anyway. He would try anyway. And in the process, he would become the kind of person who never gives up. And you? You're already becoming that person, one lesson at a time. Now close your eyes, just for a moment. Imagine yourself in Chris Gardner's shoes, standing in a public bathroom, holding your child, wondering if tomorrow will be better. And still, choosing to believe. Still showing up. Still pushing forward. That is what true success looks like. It doesn't wear a suit. It doesn't drive a fancy car. It looks like quiet sacrifice. It sounds like tired footsteps. It feels like doing the hard thing, again and again, even when no one claps. And the truth is, your journey, in English, in life, is not so different. Maybe you're not sleeping in a subway station. But maybe you're fighting self-doubt. Maybe you feel stuck in silence. Maybe the world told you you can't. But here you are, proving otherwise. Studying, practicing, growing. You don't have to be the best. You don't have to speak perfect English. You just have to show up with heart, with effort, with faith in your future. Because every small word you learn, every sentence you try to speak, is like a brick in the foundation of a new life. And just like Chris didn't know which day would change everything, you don't know which lesson will unlock something powerful in you. So today, take one action. Watch this story again. Write down a sentence in English. Say something out loud, even if it's imperfect. And remember, you are not weak because you struggle, you are strong because you keep going. If this story inspired you, if you felt something move inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to English Learn Day, share this video with someone who needs hope, and come back tomorrow. Because here, we believe that your past does not define you. Your practice does. Your effort does. And your voice, no matter how quiet, matters. Just like Chris, you are becoming something greater. Keep going.